Hello, everybody. If it's Wednesday, it's Warhammer, and that must mean it's time for another episode of Warhammer Weekly. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Tom. Sorry, as I screw the screen up there as I'm trying to get the right thing back up. Hi, Tom.
Hello, friends.
Also joining us this week, Mr. Paul Conti. How you doing, buddy?
What's happening, baby?
Good to have you back on the show, Paul, for your manyth time.
I believe this is number 11.
That's probably true. I'm just waiting. Why isn't the show live? Oh, there it is. Okay, it is. It just wasn't on my screen. All right, there we go. We're good. Okay. New YouTube streaming sucks. That's all I'll say. There you go. I don't like it. I don't like it one bit. Why do they have to make everything always more complicated than it needs to be?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. All right. So, tonight we're going to talk about the meta. We're going to talk about how to break it. We're going to talk about how to beat that meta. Break that meta. So, that's going to be the discussion. But of course, first the news. And there's a little bit. There's a little bit of news.
Rumor engine.
Yes, it's up on the screen. Let's talk about why this is Vampirates.
Yeah, I mean
it is so Vampirates.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we're just giving the game away now. We've got this like cutlass. It's got weird tentacle hands though. That's kind of throwing me. That's kind of weird.
That is indeed kind of weird.
Maybe we'll get an interesting cross with like maybe it'll be fish creature Vampirates, you know. We had talked a long time ago about having like sort of that Pirates of the Caribbean feel to it, right?
Yep.
From you know, what's his name's the not the Dead People's Army, but the second and third movie bad guy or whatever, you know, the guy with the one with the Kraken played by Bill Nighy. So maybe we'll get that kind of a feel. That'd be cool. I'd love to see some fish monster pirates. So I'm all right with it. Do any of us have a guess that isn't just Vampirates?
No, it's Vampirates.
Okay.
I'm in. Like that's what it is. It's fine.
They're just giving the game away here. Fish people, Vampirates.
I got nothing.
Right on. All right, easy enough. It's been settled. Can we just have the reveal of this now? Also, can we have the giants? Like, once we get them giants, that's it. There's no more that we know is coming other than, you know, a few, like, things happening with Underworlds or whatever, right?
Right.
But everything else is there. I mean, there's nothing, let me put it this way. There's nothing else specifically AoS we know what's in front of it, right?
True.
We know a little bit of Warcry from the new box set that's coming. We know a little bit of Underworlds from the new season that's coming. And that's it. So we need to see what's going on. What's up with this Broken Realms? What are we actually getting? What's going to be in the book? What kind of rules? How significant is it? How much? Tell me. Let me in. I need that meme of me like screaming at the gate, trying to shake it open. With Eric Andre. At any rate, all conversation is just memes now. Okay. So anyway, there we go.
It's all right. You can write your memoir at the end.
Yeah, exactly. It's all just. I just need to be able to hold. I need like a lot of little flashcards that I can just hold up memes. That's all I need. I want to take them analog.
Describing my life.
Yeah. All right. What else we got? What else is next? Post rumor engine.
Giant mercenaries.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that?
I would love to talk about that. So they did an article on the Lumineth Realm-lords and allies that I wasn't going to read. And then I was looking, I mean, because why would I care?
Of course.
Because they can take IDK. They have like the most boring ally list. And sure, I love how in the article they were like, you know what's really good in Stormcast armies? Sentinels, the shooters, the archers. These are better archers than your 17 archer variants you have available, because these do mortal wounds and can shoot things they can't see. And I'm like, well, you've got a good point there. Article. These are better than all of the Stormcast ranged units somehow.
Yes. Congratulations.
So that's fine. But then you know, they were like, take eels, which was again the funniest thing in the world to me when it was talking about what to ally in. Like, yeah, we know eels are good, but thank you. And then most importantly, down at the bottom, they revealed the name of the allied giant that is going to be for order and destruction. So my guess is that there's going to be like, I mean, the easy way to think about this, what we could infer, is that there's going to be a named giant for each of the other factions that will
Yep.
be able to be taken as a mercenary, right?
Yep.
So there'll be like an order destruction one, a chaos destruction one, and a death destruction one, right? And they'll probably be split amongst the three giants. So like the siege breaker and the the Kraken Eater's the order one, the siege breaker, and then the what's the third one? The executioner guy, whatever his name was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would guess the executioner guy is going to go chaos, and the other dude's going to go death. The executioner guy is going to go, I don't know, death probably. Flip those. Strike that, reverse it. You get what I'm saying. So that's cool. Cool way to do it. So it'll be named characters that can be allied in. And we'll break the allied points rules, obviously, because they're all more than 400 points.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, thoughts, gentlemen? Are you excited about that? What does this giant have to be for you to be exciting enough that you're purchasing this potentially $170 kit to put it into all of your armies?
It won't be.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think
there's no
realistically
world?
it's probably a no, but
Yeah, there's just not any real world where I'm interested in this.
I find that hard to believe. You're telling me you cannot picture those giants having some set of rules that you can't see working into an army.
No, because I'm not going to pay $180 for that one-off. I'll build a proxy. I'll build a counts as.
I see. So your pushback is on me saying you would purchase the kit. All right, Mr. Smarty Pants, you got to be.
As an army, it doesn't interest me, and the aesthetics don't really interest me for the armies that I play. And so the alternative to that reality is, okay, well, if that's going to be the case, then what are the other ways that it could be interesting? And that's how yeah.
All right, then I'll ask the question in a new way, Mr. Semantics.
Okay. You have my pen.
Jeez, Pete's. This is going to be the show tonight. We got to take your energy up, by the way, from like a 1 that it's currently at to at least a 5. Sure. I need you to kick it up a little here, Tom.
Sure.
All right. What do the rules have to be for you to proxy one of these in your army? Good night.
It has to be completely independent. It has to be able to claim objectives and hold objectives. It has to be a big enough threat and bully that it's I'm going to use it in a very significant way.
Okay. Paul, your thoughts?
I think it depends on how well they let them synergize with the armies that they're working with.
Okay.
Yep.
If somehow you can make one of these guys, whichever one is chaos, devoted to a chaos god.
Can he get a mark? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. If he can get a mark of Nurgle, I might be in. Because then it's suddenly interesting.
All right. Now, can you picture a world where they're just big bullies and that being worth it? Imagine they're incredibly offensive. Let's say they hit slightly harder than mega bosses on Maw Crushes. Okay? That's the kind of damage they put out. Slightly harder than a buffed mega boss on Maw Crusher. Right? And they have 35 wounds. Okay?
There's a lot of armies that are missing that sort of a piece.
That kind of a hammer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that does become a mega hammer. That's where I think it's okay if they suck at objectives. That would be my only pushback on what you said, Tom. But to compensate for that, they would need to be big enough bullies, right? Because they're not going to be... They're just going to be big monsters, right?
Sure.
So, if they're as offensively impactful as, Imperial Knights and 40K have been at various points in their time, in their history, or as, as the aforementioned big beaters that are out there, right? We can look down the list of people who are scary, like your Mega Boss on Maw Crusher, your Ghoul King on Terrorgeist, all the big monster melee threats. If we're matching that level of power, that to me actually says these guys would be played a lot. That would be my supposition.
Yeah, maybe. I think the difference is that it feels like Knights are a lot more generic, right?
Yeah.
Where I don't feel that with the giants. Like, and what I mean is like aesthetically, like I can fit a knight into almost any army, even like a sister's army. I can paint it appropriately.
Sure.
Fitting a knight into like a, or not a knight, fitting a giant into like a Lumineth army,
Mm-hmm.
or into like a, I don't know. Like, there's a number of armies where it just doesn't feel right aesthetically. And so it's just, I think that inherently is going to be a little bit more of a problem. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay. So what we're saying here is it's almost the aesthetic lock. The fact that they're like sort of the fee fi fo fum giants for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like that is a big part of it for me. Let me just say that. And then also like when we find out that they definitely fail charges on doubles, then that's also a steal deal.
What if, Tom, there was another giant out there that had an aesthetic that felt very similar to Lumineth, and was like that style of thing and was the same size? Would that soften you on it?
Like if you had like, here we go. So if you had a literally like a gigantic Stormcast.
Sure. I'm thinking more like the robes and elegance of the high elves of the Lumineth.
Like a cloud giant?
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, maybe is the answer. But or I could see a huge giant Stormcast. Maybe.
Sure.
Like, you pitched me that. Okay, possibly.
Got it. All right. Paul, any thoughts on the aesthetics? How do they work for you? Do you not care? Do you like them okay?
I like that there's options. It looks like there's going to be some room to play around with the kits, which is always fun. And they're big models, so they're, really have a lot of opportunity to do, fun conversion work with them too.
Sure.
I have absolutely no problem just, taking a razor saw to one of those before I, even put it together. So.
Sure. All right.
Yeah, I have slowly acquired the Vince cutting up his Archeon level of not caring about models.
What you got to do, buddy? Yeah. You got to lose the fear. Yeah. Important rule number 1, Paul. There is no fear in this dojo. Okay, that is what's important. So
yeah, like I felt that when I did my Marathi. I'm like, well, here we go.
Sure, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll see. Time will tell, and hopefully not too much time. Okay. Right on. What's our next news item?
Next news item. We are rest of the Lumineth Realm-lords are out this week. So yay!
Dude, all that cow stuff you've been waiting on is available now, Tom. I'm sure your order will be placed.
I have ordered exactly 0. I
know, Tom.
And in fact, like, I don't know. I considered selling my Lumineth that I have. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna hold on to them for right now.
It's a good plan.
And we will see what happens. Yep. I still firmly believe, like I've espoused on this channel before, I firmly believe that like this is only part of the picture. Like the way the lore was set up, the way that like it just so much of the core troops in that Lumineth box are like doing double duty for like Tyrion. I can't imagine that the Tyrionic half of the army is not within the next year. Sure. I have long espoused that, like, I think with the new launch of 3rd edition AoS next summer, which I've called for the last like 6 months, I think that we will see. I think that's when we'll probably see the launch of the new elves.
Okay. All right, fair enough. I mean, it is the most like that army has the most obvious sequel bait in history, right? It's like it might as well have just said at the end of the launch,
like
to be continued. Yeah, it's like Back to the It's like the end of Back to the Future. Roads. Yeah, like literally, we're going. We don't need roads. Yeah, exactly. We got it.
It's like they like, for a while Justice League was like Dawn of Justice Part 1.
Yeah, sure.
Like, and you can even still feel that in that movie, right?
Yeah.
Where like, and this I would say is even more egregious than that. In that, sure. Like it's Part 1, and we know that, and we accept that. Like we don't have a mounted hero. There are other gaps that we're feeling. So I'm going to hold on to it for probably a year, and if nothing tickles my fancy, if I don't get any concepts that really grab me, I'm just going to get rid of them.
Fair enough. Easy enough. All right.
I mean, we've been waiting for a hero on a demigriff for like 10 years, so I wouldn't hold your breath.
I mean, well, then I'll have some product to sell next year. I mean,
Sure.
that's where we're at.
Restock the hobby funds. So everything can always be sold. That's right. All right. Cool. Anything else in the news bucket?
There was the Super Series ban phase.
Yeah, the Super Series is starting over on Rob's channel.
Yep.
And he did his first ban phase. And it was interesting. I mean, it's kind of what you would expect. A lot of things that you would expect in those forces got banned. Salamanders and the Lord of Change and stuff like that. It's interesting.
I can't imagine. Like, I can just imagine like the process of like, okay, well, let's get rid of Tzeentch completely. So just throw out the Lord of Change and you remove Tzeentch from the picture.
I don't know if that kills the army. It's interesting because that's the thing though. That would be true.
It doesn't fully kill the army. Let me just say that.
No, especially not in a world where you're taking away their best toys as well, right? Sure, if it was like just Tzeentch alone lost the Lord of Change and nobody else lost anything, that would be really tough. But so many people lost so many good pieces. It's interesting because armies will be playing so off feel, right?
Right, which is great. Like I love that aspect of what they're doing.
Yeah,
like they're doing great with that product. Like that pursuit.
Yeah, agreed. No, go check out the Super Series if you haven't. It's obviously over on the Honest Wargamers channel. That's not an official pick of the week, just a recommendation. I've been watching along, and it's a lot of fun. I love seeing what he's doing, and the amount of effort they've put into doing their studio and everything is insane. So, yeah, well done. I hope this will be phenomenally successful, and it will be if we all go watch it. All right. Anything else? Well, I know there's at least one more small thing that happened just after.
Yeah, I mean, Armies on Parade obviously is happening this year.
Yes.
Like online. So
moved to online.
Kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, which means it's going to be like a really hard competition because when you suddenly go from like competing with 8 other people in your store, right?
Yep.
To competing with like, sorry, I made Tom go away. To competing like there you go, you're back. To competing with like a lot of other people all around the world, that's going to be a different thing. I'm interested to see what that how that works out. Yeah, Tom, you're gonna take your board and submit some photos?
Probably not.
All right.
I mean, I've already won with my board. I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I tried to do something new and I didn't do anything new this year.
Sure.
Like the thing that's sad to me is the reality that like my kids were going to go for it this year.
Oh,
like they were
they'll
going to
still have like a young bloods thing, but yes, there'll be a lot.
Yeah,
more kids.
like it's not the same. And so yeah, it's really depressing that like they're not going to have that shot. So
okay. All right.
Is for them, it's as much the experience, right? Of like going to the store and being a part of things and all that stuff. And they're not going to have that interaction.
Sure. Paul, you putting an army up?
That would require making a display board that I like more. And so probably not.
I see. I'm disappointed. In both of you. That's what I want you to know right now.
That's fine.
Well, it would definitely be Nurgle, so don't be that disappointed.
Sure. That's fine. I mean, now that it's online, I don't have to actually leave my house and travel like the 50 minutes that my GW store is away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I've got that whole Whirlwind's Edge army. Feels like a thing I should do. So I'll probably do that. Just got to figure out how to photograph that big stupid thing. I need to go get a some kind of giant piece of backboard to put against it, like to shoot, to backdrop against it. Need to go to like the store and get a big piece of like white plastic, like plastic drop cloth or something. I don't know, something like that. Anyway,
yeah. one of those things that like professional photographers use.
Yeah,
for
like the
photo
full
shoots.
size one you'd get at Sears. I need that. That's what I need to shoot behind that aircraft carrier. Yes.
Yep.
Maybe I could just. Does Sears still exist? Is that still a thing? Can I just take my army in there and be like, I'd like you to shoot some photos of this, please. Thank you. I'll set it
Sears
up.
has gone bankrupt.
Darn it.
Womp, womp, womp.
Well, that's a shame. All right. Okay. So cool. I think that's all our news. I'll be interested to see everybody's army. What I am excited about is it'll be cool to see them all in one place, which I think is a positive thing. I do love looking at other people's armies and seeing completed armies and boards and stuff like that is always cool. So, yeah, that like it'll be a good chance to see everybody's work, and I like seeing people's fully painted armies. It's cool. So it'll be fun to be able to peruse those things. All right. So, with that being said, gentlemen, let's turn to some pick of the week. Paul, what would you like to share with them? Oh, hold on. Pause. Thank you, Martin Orlando. Thank you. A special shout out to Martin Orlando for helping me not forget this freaking thing for the third week in a row. Okay. All right. We're going to go way back. Everybody, I need you all in the Wayback Machine. Okay? All right? Are we all in the Wayback Machine? We're going to go back in time. Almost a month to the preview that introduced us Morathi. Yes? You all remember what I'm talking about? The book Morathi that's coming, the Broken Realms book. Yeah?
Yep.
Shake your heads if you're still alive. Okay, great. So, wonderful. And you all remember that wonderful piece of art that was shared in there? Of Morathi in the giant cauldron of blood, like, busting out as they're fighting the Idneth Deepkin? Yes? Still with me, right? Okay.
Yep.
So, a couple days after that, I was having a conversation. I was looking at the picture a little closer, and both Morathis are in that picture together fighting the battle.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Little Morathi is on foot as Big Morathi busts out of the cauldron above her.
Yep.
So, is pictured there the moment of either Morathi's godhood? That's option 1. Option 2, does Morathi, post the Morathi book, get to have both of her aspects on the table?
Yes.
Okay.
That's what I'm calling. I'm calling that we are going to have a development of the War Scroll to allow for both in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if that's a certain build. I don't know what that is, but I think that is what we are seeing. That's my vote.
Yes. So I love the idea of having, because the problem was when Little Morathi went away, like, you lost your good command ability, you lost your good spell casting, right? And everything became, and it was just like, oh, well, she's just a beat stick, right?
Yep.
But if we're going to get like god level Morathi, where I get to have both on the board, maybe the little one summons out.
You have my attention.
Summons out. Okay,
yes.
You start with the little one on the board, and instead of her transforming, she actually summons out her larger self, because in godhood she can like split her presence. Because we know that like the gods can be in multiple places at a single time.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that would be fantastic. Let me just say, I am excited about that. When I saw that in the picture, so it's one of two possibilities. Either the artist was just drawing stuff, because sometimes the artists just draw stuff and think it's cool.
Yeah.
Right? And they were kind of just taking artistic license with the moment of transformation.
Yep.
Fine. Entirely possible. Or the artist had been told kind of what the book was going to be about. Like, it's going to be them fighting the Idneth Deepkin and Morathi's, raiding their soul cauldrons or whatever to get enough souls to actually like attain her godhood, right? And and now that thing is real. That's like, you can have both on the board. Fantastic. I would be so stoked if I could do both. So there you go. I've been meaning to talk about that on the show for like 3 weeks and kept forgetting because I didn't make a note to myself. But Martin Orlando is the hero we needed. So there's my prediction. Ring-a-ding-ding. I'll predict a thing. That's right. It's the return of our ever-popular segment. And it's that you're going to be able to play both Morathi's little aspect and big aspect at once. Post the Morathi book. There you go.
I'll give you my thought on it.
I'm ready.
I think it is a nod to the narrative, and it's going to have nothing to do with gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's just going to be Marathi revealing herself to everyone that she, like, hasn't she been hiding her?
Yeah, she's always cloaking
form?
her bigger self in an illusion.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think she's going to unmask herself to everyone.
Hmm.
I think she's just going to make it known that she's this big monstrous thing now. I think that's going to be like the plot point that's illustrating.
Could be. Entirely possible. I'm going to hope that I'm right. All right. So now to pick of the week that I covered that thing I've been meaning to cover for almost a month. Paul, what do you got for us, buddy?
Well, I'm going to shamelessly self-promote for a second.
Sure.
Over on my channel, Radio Free Hammer Hall, I just put up my first ever video battle report. Previously I had just done like slideshow battle reports. So what I'm actually really hoping for is that people go and check it out and give me feedback on it, on what I can do better. It was very much my first time doing it. It was just an experiment. I don't know how often I'll be able to do it. I definitely want to do it again because it was a lot of fun to do. But of course, for like the viewer perspective, I want to make the best content that I can for people. So, go check it out. Give me some feedback. Let me know how to do it better.
Awesome. Perfect. I'll link it in the description. Tommy, what do you got to share?
I'm gonna pick the Super Series.
Okay. No, it's good. It's been it's good stuff.
Yeah. Thanks for spoiling it, Vince. No, it's I'm really excited to see the development that Rob and them are kind of like the next steps of our hobby as they're kind of exploring. And it's interesting that COVID's really pushed us to this digital kind of consumption interaction. So it'll be interesting to see what next steps look like.
Okay. Nice. For myself, I'm gonna pick two videos for the price of one. Which will transition into the. That's right. It's right. I'll transition, which will transition right into hobby time. Which is this last weekend. I was hanging out with Scott and John and Sam. We all went to Scott's house to have a weekend of a paint jam, and to work on a big painting project. And we got to play some AoS. We got to play some Warcry. And I got to see both their painted armies. And you can actually see the journey to them getting both their armies painted, as both of them tried to paint their armies in a weekend in expectation of us, Sam and I, coming up there with our painted armies. Yeah, you can go check that out. And they're really good. One of them succeeds. One of them fails. I'll say that much. I won't spoil it beyond that as to who is successful, but I'll link both John's video and Scott's video below.
Well, and you guys did your diorama too, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, yep, we did I'll talk about that in hobby time. Yeah. So.
Okay. Right
on. Well, let's just transition into that. I'll go first. So here was hobby time. So yes, I spent the weekend up there. It was great. We did our diorama. So the basic concept of it was we all we're painting a green skin, an orc or a goblin, something like that. Mm-hmm. And we all made it individually. So we measured out what the little steps on the bases were going to be. And sorry, the question was asked who won. Myself and Sam won. We crushed them. The forces of death were nothing for the combined might of Slaanesh and Stormcast. So there you go. But we all made a green skin. And the idea was we had a little bases, we planned them out, putted them out, and then kind of got there. We had to do a little bit of slight changes and shavings to make sure they all fit together, but then proceeded to lay rubble, and then spent the 2.5 days painting our guys, and then put them all together into a diorama, and I shared it out today on Twitter and Instagram and everything like that. If you're not following me there, you should. And they shared theirs as well. And we're having a fun little guessing game as to who painted what in the diorama, as to who did what minis.
I don't know anything for certain, but all I'm going to say is I think your ears give it away.
I see. Well, I'm not going to confirm or deny any of that here. In fact, what I'll do is, just so everybody can see, I'll actually bring up the photo. There they are, down in the bottom. We'll go ahead and replace our our rumor engine photo with that much more interesting photo for a moment. There's all of them together. You can see the Noblars over on the left, and then the orc boss in the middle, then the goblin boss, and then the mega boss. So, and there you go. Yes, as Sam mentioned, he's in the chat there, and he said, the Signesh Alliance allegiance. Yes, winning is easy. All I had to do was ally with a Chaos God. I agree. More Stormcast need to learn this. If you just come over to our side, the Chaos side, winning is so much easier. We have punch. So there you go. That's what I'll say. No, it was just a tremendously fun weekend. It was great. It was great to sit down and just hobby with other people. It's really this is something I would actually recommend other people. I know it's hard to get together right now, but if you have one or two other people you can sort of safely get together with in our current world and just have a hobby weekend, or spend the day painting with them. It's just really nice to hobby with somebody else in the room. It ends up pushing you. You end up getting to bounce ideas off other people. This is such a solitary hobby normally, and it doesn't have to be, and it's so enjoyable to practice it with other people. So I'd say I fully encourage anybody else to do the same. You will not regret it. Okay, so that's what I've been working on, as well as rebasing Skaven. Look at all of them. Look at all these dead bases. So many old dead square bases. A giant hand. There's so much more down here, by the way. And I made all of those bases. And here's a fun story. I miscounted.
I mean, you undercounted or overcounted?
Undercounted. Of course I did.
I assumed that was the problem.
Here's the problem. I think when I did it originally, I counted the proper amount of clan rats. But then when I got to rebasing them, since I got back, I wasn't thinking, and I was just like clip, 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 glue, clip, 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 glue. And I have 150 clan rats, but there's no reason to actually base those last 10. Because that's nothing. They only come in 20s and 40s. So I just did 10 extra clan rats, and that chewed up my 10 bases that I would have used to finish it out. So
womp, womp, womp.
Now I have to go make more bases. And I'm just like, oh, for the love of all things holy. And I realized it today as I was getting down to the end, and I'm like, I don't think is there more of those around? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
All right. So, good stuff. That's all right. I'll do that in the future at some point in time because I got stuff I want to paint right now. But at any rate, it's rebasing, and then we'll get on to other projects once this is done. I'll have this done in the next day or so, so no big deal. All right. Paul, what about you, man? What are you working on? What's your hobby time? You're painting right now?
I'm painting right now. I am currently working on my Chaos Lord on Karkadrak. I don't know if you can see him all that well in the camera. So he has had some Nurgle conversions, and I'm currently working on getting the paint job right because the model itself of the Karkadrak doesn't look super Nurgle aesthetic. So I'm trying to figure out what I can do to make him look more Nurgle-y. And so far, I tried making all of his little spiny things like bone horn looking things. Did not quite work, so now I am experimenting with it, just continuing to be the same green as the rest of him. And I don't know. We'll see how it goes. In general, my hobby time has been working on the Slaves to Darkness division of my Nurgle force that will eventually probably be a full Slaves to Darkness army that I can play on its own. But for right now, it's just an extension of Nurgle.
Okay. All right. Right on. Well, that's the beautiful part about Chaos. Easy to expand. Always more things you can add to the army. Right on. Okay. Yeah, just I agree with 2+ stuff. Just put some Nurglings on it. Get a Nurgling swinging from the tail. Have a Nurgling riding on his back.
Riding on his head.
Oh, there you go. See? All right. Right on. He's already on the page. Yes. That's that. No, I thought Doug said accidental caps. I thought he was just really excited. Nerdling swinging from the tailor armor would be awesome. I agree. It would be awesome. Okay, Tom, what's your hobby time?
Selling things. Somehow I am indeed still selling things.
Mm-hmm.
So just thinning things right on out.
Tom, we got to get you painting something, my friend.
I know.
Otherwise, I'm going to have an intervention. I'm coming to your house next for the weekend to paint. That's going to force you to pick up a brush. That's what's going to happen.
I'm moving on to terrain. Selling off terrain now.
Oh, I thought you were going to paint terrain. I was like, which, by the way, is what you should do. You should paint some terrain.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
That's generally your happy place that you go to get your mojo restarted there.
It is. It is.
I'm just saying, Tom, I'm going to knock on your door one of these Friday afternoons if you're not careful. That's what you're going to do.
We'll see about that.
Sure.
We'll see about that.
All right. And somebody asked, like, when are we going to reveal who painted what? I don't know. At some point. I guess, like, I'm not sure. We didn't think that far through it. We said, let's all put this up and let people guess, and then we didn't really talk about when we're going to say what it is or how. But, somehow it's fine. I will say that there have been many guesses. Some have been correct. Most have been wrong. There you go. There's the answer. That's my answer. All right. So, gentlemen, let's talk about some meta breaking, shall we? Let's just break it up.
I mean, the hypothetical meta.
So, things that we know about the current meta. How can we know what we know? Well, obviously we can infer, right? Like, we can look at the book and have a pretty good inference of books that are out there and understand, because we've all played this game for a long time, to a pretty good degree what's going on. We also have some... Go ahead.
Can I push back on that, though?
Sure.
I think that, I've been watching Twitter, and a number of the standard folks who do the, Six Nations tournaments or whatever, I think for team, for the UK, have bowed out this year.
Yep.
And I say that only to say that, and their reasoning was, I haven't played a lot of competitive games. And I think that there's a lot of, I get what they're doing, right? I don't disagree with that evaluation, because the reality is that we don't know. We can predict, we can guess, but the reality is we don't know really what the meta is.
Sure. Right
now.
Sure.
And that's just a very real challenge that I think that we're facing.
Okay. So I think that that's partially true. That is to say, it's. Let me break it up like this. We have our own inferences. We have some historical data from the state of where the meta was before all the lockdowns began, which isn't, it is what it is. You should use that data weekly, right? Because a lot of things have changed, but it's still relevant, right? Doesn't mean it's discounted. It just means you consider it, with appropriate distance. We have some TTS, which should be counted again weekly, because for obvious reasons, TTS doesn't have the same restrictions, or you know what I mean. If you want to run 20 cockatrices, you can in TTS. No human on the planet has 20 cockatrices. I would wager, right? But you can do that in TTS immediately,
right?
And we also do have some tournaments, by the by. There are places in the world that have handled this whole situation well, and that are actually able to gather in relative safety and have tournaments. And so we do have results from those tournaments. Now, the trick is most of those aren't very big, right? They tend to be more 30, 40, 50 person tournaments at the largest, but they're there.
Yep.
And I think when we cobble those all together, what we can get to is some picture of the meta with a reasonable confidence factor, right? Sure. It's not the same as we can say, if we had all of the actual data of tournament reports like we did previously, right?
Yeah.
Where we can say this army's at a 73% win rate. We know it's dominating. We know it's a problem. Blah, 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 blah. Right? We can't get to that level of specificity. Okay? But that being said, I think it's still like we can still make inferences that have a reasonable amount of data beneath them, right? In other words, we're not just standing on clouds here. Okay. Oh my gosh! Stop telling me, stupid computer, that you want to reset. Okay. Fair enough. Is that a fair statement? So we're going to approach this with data, but also humility. We accept that we don't have a perfect picture. Fair enough?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can draw the metagame in general broad strokes. We don't necessarily have to pin down, oh, this one particular list or this one particular army is
right.
the best thing. But you can see pretty clearly trends of like ideas that are dominating.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's exactly right. And I think that's what you really need to understand the broad meta movements, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because if we understand what, in general, sort of armies are being played and that are good and the sort of tricks that they use and that they'll tend to be seen, then that gives you enough of a picture of the meta to how you could counterplay against it.
Right.
Is that a fair statement?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now that I've laid down some groundwork, Tom, what's your perception? We're gonna round robin this. Tom, what's your perception of some elements of the current meta?
I think shooting is going to be a big deal.
Okay.
I think it's going to be something that's going to have to be kind of like accounted for in a very significant way.
Yeah, I agree with
that. Let's see what else. I think that magic will be dominant, so you'll either have magic or you won't.
Okay.
I think that's a pretty safe statement.
All right.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Those are my initial kind of evaluations.
That's easy. All right, fair enough. So more power projection, right?
Yes.
And damage being like that's I think the easy way to sum it up, whether it's ranged or through high-powered magic. What's happening there is, in effect, a thing not fighting you in melee is killing you by projecting its power over to you. Right?
Right.
Okay. I'm down with that. Paul, what's your take?
That's exactly how I would characterize it, too. And with varying degrees of, what other stuff is in the list, because you have a big variation of what those lists can bring. Mm-hmm. You can have, your Seraphon version that is running a ton of skinks to tie you up on the board, or OBR with like 3 catapults, and those Mortek Guard are going to be a problem anyway, and now you're getting hit with flying skulls, and Stormcast have their own, they're like the elite version of it. So there's a lot of different factors into it, where I think it basically brings us to the main thing that you have to deal with is what defense you have against that ranged threat. Because I think a lot of these lists it's questionable if you're going to be able to successfully get to that ranged threat to kill it. So you need to survive it somehow.
Sure. I think that's fair. Yeah, I definitely agree that the meta has introduced a lot of power projection, right? Whether we're talking Lumineth archers and, maybe Techless, with Seraphon and Skinkerdoos, or the quad laser of 2 double shooting Bastillodons, and as we all know, you can't stop the quad laser, or whether it be, Sallies that are still perfectly fine, and cheap, or the big dead frog Croak himself, right? They're like Seraphon have a ton of different forms of power projection. Whether it be Tzeentch and their ability to both lay out some decent ranged mortal wounds, or to blast you with pinkies and flamers, or anything like that, right? And so on and so forth. So KO is the fourth one I wanted to mention, being a preeminent thing. KO have taken out a couple tournaments recently, like real tournaments that have been held, physical tournaments,
Right.
have had
Right.
KO taking the top spot and showing up in the top 3 quite regularly, right?
Yep.
So, they're for
Oh, yeah.
real. They're
Yeah,
for real.
yes. With those points adjustments, KO moves from a okay, some can probably figure this out to no, it is a top tier army. There's no question about it.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. And all of these armies have in common that they
By the
project
way,
power.
when you reduce points by approximately 10%,
At least.
that happens.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
across the board on all the things you actually want to take. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, and
Surprise.
Shootcast. Sorry, I didn't mention
Yeah.
Shootcast either, but Shootcast are absolutely the other one here. They're back. Speaking
Right.
of reducing all your points by 10%, right? Yeah.
Right. And they have real power projection, obviously, and mobility as well.
Yes. Absolutely. So yeah, I never think of Stormcast as being the shooting army because in my head that's not what they're there for, right?
But they have that now.
I understand. In my head, Stormcast are still like the heavy armor due to like lightning strike down and are the great shield of Sigmar holding back the tide of chaos. Not dude standing at 2 miles out just striking grid squares, but I await the next book and the opening of the Ruination Chamber.
So your head is stuck where the lore is, not where the gameplay is. I got you.
Correct. I assume the Ruination Chamber, by the way, okay, it's just Stormcast tanks. I say bring them on. I want Stormcast tanks. You want Stormcast tanks. We all want Stormcast tanks. Okay? Just bring it on. We've had the steam tank technology for thousands of years at this point in the Mortal Realms. Let's just get some lightning train style Eberron Stormcast tanks. We're gonna go full Space Marine on this. We're just going all the way in. Okay? That's what I want. I want them Stormcast tanks. Then we're targeting some grid squares. I want some heavy giant cannons just firing out lightning shot across the board. So, anyway.
See, all they need to do is hire some Caradron overlords to help with the tech.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
Sure. I'm just saying, tell me you wouldn't want Stormcast tanks, and I will say you're crazy. Mm-hmm. All right. So, at any rate, there's plenty of power projection in the meta. I agree with all of that. Okay. I think that the other thing, and we've mentioned this on a couple shows, is that what that means, the natural implications of that, is that things like 5 wound heroes with a 4 or 5 up save as their only defense are like, those guys are dead. They're dead. You're dead now. Lie down. You're dead. Okay.
They're not going to be reliable. Is the best way to say that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to totally poo-poo it, but what I'm going to say is it's not going to be reliable.
Sure. I think that's the right way to go. It's not that like every game you play, those things are worthless. They're not. Your Hag Queens will probably survive easily till the end of the game, 3 out of 5 games in a tournament.
Right, but the key is that in a competitive 5-game event or 6-game event, they are no longer what we classify as reliable.
Right, exactly, because there's going to be 1 or 2 games where you're going to meet people who have the tools to just go point, click, kill.
Click.
Yep, and that's it. Right?
Yeah.
And so what that means is that armies that are relying heavily on that kind of synergy to win are going to be on the back foot. Right? Doesn't mean impossible, just on the back foot.
Somebody, Tyler mentioned that Night Haunt has all the tools to upset this year. They don't, because all their heroes are super low wounds. Like their highest wound hero is an 8-wound hero.
Sure.
And all of their buffs are dependent upon their heroes being alive. Their teleport around the board, their bubbles, their buffs, all that are their ward save. All of that is wholly within 12 inches.
Yeah, I would also point out that they tend to be fairly susceptible to mortal wounds. Basically relying on like a 6-up save, and that's it. And there are plenty of the things we've mentioned are projecting mortal wound power, not just actual like high rend. Although certainly having ethereal saves is funny against like KO or something like that, who clearly do invest a great amount into like -2 rend shooting, and you're like, okay, enjoy that 0 rend, right? So That, you know, it's certainly a mixed bag for them. But yes, you're right. Most of their heroes are little weedy people who are fairly easy to kill. All right. Anything else we want to say about the nature of the current meta? I don't know that giants, no matter what's in that book, will do anything to shake it up. That's my statement. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
I don't see what that is. I do think these Broken Realms books will shake it up a big deal. I think these will make a huge impact on the meta when they come out. Okay, like everyone will have very impactful consequences for the armies that they touch.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
just because I think that's part of their goal is to shake up the way these armies play.
Sure.
Right, and so by their very nature, they're going to have a big impact because they're designing them to have a big impact. So there you go. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sure, John, just reach out to me on something like email me, or if there's an email below, or Twitter, or wherever, man. Hit me up on any social media. Okay. So yeah, that's my thought on that. All right, so let's talk about how we beat that meta. Right? Let's do that. Let's figure out how we beat this. What armies, tactics, whatever we want to touch on. Let's start with armies. What armies are the best positioned to tackle this meta? Right? Who are your hot picks as far as armies that can counterplay this meta?
I think
Paul, I'm gonna let you go first.
Sorry, I should have said so.
the one I think I would actually pick first is Slaves to Darkness.
All right, and why? I like the pick. Tell me why.
So you have your Chaos Knights and your Chaos Warriors that have a 5-up save against mortal wounds, as well as your Chaos Lord on Karkadrak and your Lord on Demonic Mount. Also have that same 5-up save. You have the Chaos War Shrine giving you a 6-up ward save and giving you other defensive buffs. You generally have like a nice toolkit. If you mark them Nurgle, the bubble around your general is -1 to hit and shooting.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
So you're getting defense against shooting and against magic.
Mm-hmm.
The Darkfire Demon Rift also is more powerful against wizards, so you have access to a really strong anti-wizard spell.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they just have like a nice little toolbox of things and it's also within units and heroes that you want to play anyway, that are just extra good against this particular build.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with everything in Slaves. I want to add to it because I think I agree with everything you just said. Okay, completely on board. But we can go farther, right? Because as Dan just mentioned in the comments, you can have your Chaos Warriors on 3-up re-rolling 6-up, right? Like that's fully doable. In these builds.
That's not even hard.
No, that is one piece of synergy there. Right.
Yeah.
You can have massive blocks of hyper speed Marauders, right? Which are just like running around on a 4-up save, which is crazy. And, hitting like Mack trucks and charging, way across the board, right? So they can have the speed to get to the enemy so fast. Like all the shooting has to pour into them, and they have to hope that they eliminate your Marauders before your Marauders get there and just crush them, right? You have Be'lakor. Be'lakor alone. Be'lakor is such a power piece in this, right? When you can shut down like Croak or or many other things like that, like their Ironclad needs to move or shoot. I understand they could still pick up and drop because it doesn't stop setups, but still, it's going to really get in its way, right? There's plenty of things we've mentioned that that Be'lakor will just give a real bad time. And of course, fair dinkum to mention Pitch Black as well, right? Like the Slaves of Darkness have a sub-faction you can pick where your Demon Princess can walk around and just pitch black scenery so it blocks line of sight. And yes, there are some things that will see through that, like the Lumineth Sentinels, but that does shut off a lot of what we talked about, right?
Yep.
Like a lot of what we talked about does need line of sight. Not all, not all. Some of it can still just target an area. Some of it can target without line of sight, And so, it's not going to stop everything, but it does mess with a lot of stuff. And the fact that you can do it even before your turn, right? The fact that you can pre-game move to turn on pitch black and literally start the game in complete darkness, blocked from line of sight. Like you can have whole parts of your army just completely blocked from line of sight because of the pre-game move. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. So I stand behind the slaves. Anything I missed, Tom? Anything else you wanted to cover in slaves? I mean, I know this is an army you know well, also, and
yeah,
I'm a big fan of.
I think that I think that they have the tools necessary to actually compete, even with the crutches removed away. And we've talked about this. Mm-hmm. We've talked about the significance of knights, for example, like something that's super underappreciated. I think that Archeon's going to still ruin some people's days.
Yeah, I agree. Yep.
Because he is. There's just not a lot that folks can do against an Archeon backed by a Nurgle Shrine.
Sure. When he's just rolling around almost always on 2 up, re-rolling ones, has 4 layers of mortal wound or spell
reroll
protection.
6s.
Yeah.
Forced to reroll 6s.
Yep.
And he will just wrecking ball through stuff he hits. And he has high mobility, and he is still going to be a very real threat. And by the way, that Nurgle Shrine doesn't have to that could be any shrine. Since he has the Nurgle keyword, he gives the buffs.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid he's actually in Nurgle where all the shooting's at -1 as well.
Sure.
So,
absolutely. I will say, he really benefits from quite a few of those buffs and gets real freaking scary. In most of those Chaos God buffs, he gets real scary real fast.
Yep.
So yeah.
So I think there's some gas there. I think that, and you talked about yes, we talked about pitch black and all that, but I don't think that the other enclaves are bad.
No.
Right.
No, I quite like Cabalists actually. If you want to use, it's the way to make mini mages actually compete in the current meta because you can push yourself up to 2, 3, 4 to cast.
And that's what I was going to say. Is I think Cabalists actually, I think that your pick there in the beginning was a right pick. Mm-hmm. I think that Cabalists is going to be very strong in the new meta.
Yeah, I've had very good luck with it. I've played Cabalists in several games. It's never your main strat. It's just it's a side story, right? It's the fries, it's not the burger. You're not going to make a meal of it. But good fries can make a meal, right?
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Good pick, Paul, right out of the gate. Ripping a strong one. I agree. I think Slaves is a good counter meta pick. It's got a lot of great tools to deal with this. You can't get all of them in at once, but you can get a lot of what you need in. I think that's important. Mm-hmm. All right, Tommy, what about you? What do you got there?
IDK.
IDK. It's a winner chicken dinner. The once and future king. It's hard to bring down. Yep.
Yeah, I just think that the IDK, you're gonna have to play them smart. So it's not gonna be a shoe-in, but they've always been that way. Mm-hmm. You've always had to play them smart. You had to zone correctly. You had to screen. You had to do all those things. And it's going to be difficult in KO matchups because they can literally just reposition wherever they want. And so that's going to make that matchup very difficult. But I still think that they have the mobility. They have the hitting power. They have, and with eels, they have a lot of the junk attacks. That's going to do extra against all these shooting armies. I remember when the eels have always had a good suite of attacks, but there's a subsection of them that are not as good.
Yeah, sure.
Right?
Yeah.
But now against these shooting armies, that's going to do extra work to make sure to clear those units.
Yeah, sure. Because you just want to throw any massive attacks at them. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Like the Lumineth archers, and it'll just pick them up. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, what I would say is that I think IDK is a real, is going to be positioned very well, even before a book update. Let me say that.
Yeah, which we know they're getting the book update in Marathi, so we've probably got some interesting times ahead for them. Will eel spam still be a thing? Who knows, right? Like we'll see.
Yeah, who knows?
It very well could be, and like very real world could be eel spam could still be a thing, and they could have a lot of other options, right? Like some of their other units could come into play.
Like, ideally, in a perfect world, they might have one like a 9er and a 6er, and then just a mixed arms force, everything else. And in that world, suddenly they get really scary.
Yep. And obviously, I mean, their ability to control the flow of like who exactly can be shot in various situations. Again, yes, KO can somewhat dance around that to a point. I mean, they can zone in certain ways, blah blah. But like, IDK have a lot more ability than most to control what is being shot, right? Like
cast that.
Sure, because they can just shut off line of sight to basically a great deal of their army. There are still, again, they don't perform amazingly against all of this because, just like we said, some of this stuff doesn't need line of sight.
Right now.
Yes, and some of this stuff can just target areas. So there are still things that that can just fire off. Right? It's not the silver bullet, but it's stronger against more. I think that's the right answer. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Paul,
here's my question for IDK.
Okay.
Is what do they do about the mortal wound output that you get from, say, Seraphon or Zeech?
They channel it.
Define what you mean. Oh, put it onto the right units where you can only target certain things, keep everything else out of range or off board.
Right. Yeah. Because what like you still have to target what they want you to target, which is the nearest thing.
Sure. I mean, there are.
You still can't get around that.
I mean, you can with like Croak's bomb spell, but sure, I get what you're saying because like he's just casting. That's just a PBAOE off of the portal or whatever.
Right.
But I get what you mean. Like the Sallies or the Skinks, right? They're that kind of deployment. Salamander certainly spit mortals and those kinds of things. It's like, okay, those still have to heed line of sight. But the way to beat Croak's bomb spell is just not have your eels on the table, right? Like you just bring them in off, you keep them in reserve and then bring them in off table. They can cover so much ground, even on a charge because of their little fishermen, right? That they can generally get there, right? So, yeah, I mean, I think that they do have some tools. That would be my answer too, right? You just don't start them on the board in those situations if you really need to. Like you have that versatility. Right. So I think that's fair. I mean, they've proven time and time again, meta again, that they like have these tools to keep being resilient, which is amazing given the time that book was printed. They have to be like the most enduring army from that time period.
Right. Yep. They're like the eternal bridesmaid army.
Yeah.
It's like they've never dominated, but they've always been a contender.
Yeah, absolutely. They're always showing up. And even now, actually, in a lot of the recent, like, again, physical tournament results we've seen, they show up. They're in the top 10, top 5, top 3. Like, they're there, right? So, yeah, I think that's fair. It's always a force. Okay, cool. I'm with that. All right, you ready for my pick? It's cogent to what I'm currently working on. Okay. And that is Skaven. All right.
Weird.
Yeah.
110% agree.
Yeah, I think Skaven are always going to be, like, unless they just hose the points up something fierce, I think Skaven are always going to be competitive simply because they have a combination of all of the right things to be able to adapt to most situations, right? Yeah. The only thing they lack is a real hardcore anvil. Like we can take a punch and win through attrition anvil, right? But they have shooting in a variety of different sources. They have magic that can still play ball. Okay, like they have casters it's an army of double casters who can get big bonuses and achieve big numbers, right? They have bodies, like they have bodies galore. I mean, as just a point of reference here, let's say I did paint up 10 more clan rats. Okay? Let's just imagine that world. Okay? After of the 150 I just rebased. Put me at an even 160. Okay?
Sure.
I could put that on the board for 800 points.
Yep.
Right? 160 bodies. Like, and it would be easy to make all of those immune to battle shock. Right? With like multiple like fail safes on that, by the by. Right?
Yep.
And that's 160 wounds of like of just meat that can also, by the way, retreat and charge.
Yep.
Right. That's a pretty potent answer to your mortal wound spam nonsense. Like, sure, go ahead. Okay, I pick up 6 rats from this unit and 5 from this one. Okay, cool. Like, I don't care. Right. Like, none of that matters. Right. It is a flood of very versatile bodies. Storm vermin have come down, making them a very. I've used them in a couple games now, and oh god, do I love them! They're right at the points they should have always been at. They should probably still be even a little cheaper, but anyways, they're good enough. I'm okay with it. They are choppy as all get out. Probably one of the things we lack are real decent battalions. We're out of that time period of books where battalions were just bad, like almost universally, and not like we've got like Gits battalions, which whatever, it's fine. And
I still like the Claw Horde though. That's pretty decent.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah. And now that Storm Vermin aren't a train wreck, the Claw Horde is much more attractive. Right? That was the problem with it before. You had to pay a tax with Storm Vermin when they were overcosted. But now that they're good, it's like, okay, Claw Horde's all right. It's actually a pretty good basis to build an army off of. You're still high drops though, even with that. Even with that battalion. You have like mortal wounds and real shooting. You have interesting monsters. You have mobility. Like you actually have quite an incredible amount of mobility. Like I said, not only the aforementioned retreat and charge, but you have all sorts of things that can get all over the board between skitter leap and using gnaw holes and just the raw speed of some of your units. So like, yeah, it's versatile enough. It can get there. Right?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And just the way that it can adjust means that it can always be playing ball, right? And a lot of the tools they have are just like primed to crush a lot of these things, because you also have dudes that can start off board, ambush up, get bonuses to charge, and then slam in, right? And so all of a sudden you're taking like a very potent melee hitting anvil into something that cannot withstand it. Right, and they never had a real chance to shoot you. If you're talking about like static shooters, i.e., not KO, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Probably your biggest drawback is that if you're trying to rely on like Claw Lords or Grey Seers on foot, they are still pretty susceptible to being sniped out. But your bigger heroes are all quite robust because they all have their own built-in 5-up feel no pain. Right, the bells and the furnace, both builds of that, as well as your big demon lords all have that. I should point out that your bells are quite good against this because they do benefit from Lookout Sir and can retreat in combat. So not to be underestimated. So Skaven, there you go. That's my pick. I know I just named like a million things. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it.
In the rats.
I think the interesting thing about Skaven too is that they can play they can play ball too. Like they can dominate the magic phase against a lot of armies, and they can dominate the shooting phase if they build the army the way the way that you need to. Like it can just happen.
Yep, absolutely agreed. There are still units in the army that are complete waste of time. Okay. Like, rat ogres are still bad. I wish they weren't, but they are. Sorry. I know you moved them down that big 10 points and thought that was going to be the salvation. It did not. Still bad. But that's okay. That's all right. And I should also point out they also have pre-game zoning move units that are super cheap and ambushing units that are super cheap. So there you go. 2 more great things that Skaven can do. All right. Cool. Good stuff. There's my pick. All right. So those are, I think, 3 armies. Is there what other forces do you think might have some potential? Let's go back around to the top. Paul?
Well, Tom hasn't gotten one yet.
Oh,
yeah. Oh wait, no, yeah,
he did.
Sorry,
he did.
We completely lost track. Yes,
you're all right. Paul, let's
I was
go
just
back
not
to
paying
you.
attention. Tom,
You're fine. I know it's a thing many of us do. We all get it. Paul, what about yourself? What other picks do you have? What other? This doesn't, even if it's not a whole army. What elements do you think?
I'm going to go out with an army that is, it's a little bit selfish of me to say it. It might be a little bit biased, but I think Nurgle is in a really good place right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, agreed. We did a whole show on this and why I think that they have gas in the engine.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of mortal wound saves available to you. You put lots of wounds on the board for not a lot of points. All of those wounds generally punch above their weight. You have, your Harbinger of Decay he has a 4-up save against magic and then gives the 5-up ward save aura. You can splash in all of that Warriors of Chaos, or not Warriors of Chaos, Slaves to Darkness stuff. That, all of that keeps its benefits. There's very few things that you lose. So running a Nurgle build that's heavy Slaves to Darkness could be really strong on the defensive side. And one of the benefits is that literally you have no, other than like the Demon Heralds that nobody plays, you have no 5 wound heroes. All of your heroes are basically 7 wounds and up.
Right.
So it takes a lot more to kill them. And a lot of them they all have like a 4-up save or better as well.
Yep. Okay. I'm down with that. No, I agree. I mean, go back and watch that Nurgle show if you want to see our full thoughts. But I am totally in this camp. Nurgle's like, here's my hard prediction for Nurgle. They've got a lot of stuff. They're just missing. Yes, they're missing just a few tiny pieces, but they're going to be quick up. I'm guessing on the Broken Realms book treatment, and I think that is going to take them from like good to great, right?
They have potential, is what I would say.
Yeah, 100%. There's like Blight Kings and that kind of crap getting cheaper, and there's just built-in negatives to shooting and a lot of built-in mortal wound protection. Again, there's a lot of potential in that army. If they can just get a few more things to line up, they're going to be a real force. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it just as an example, again, to self-promote a little bit, the battle report that I just did, that game I played against a Fire Slayers list with 50 Hearthguard Berserkers, and I lost by 1 victory point.
It's pretty good.
So, I think Fire Slayers can still hang. They're definitely they have some problems against shooting, but they're still very good against every other army in the game.
They're going to lose on mobility now. That's what I would argue. Is I think Fire Slayers are going to lose on mobility, and that's always been a weakness, which is good. They have a weakness, and just we're moving into a meta that's going to have a lot more mobility.
Yep.
Does the fact that the average number of objectives in the pitched battle scenarios actually did increase significantly in GHB 2020?
Yep.
Do you think that's actually one of the most stealthy injuries to Fire Slayers? Because yes, they've got a tunneling dude, but then after that, everybody's walking with their tiny little short legs.
Yep, and there's no real summoning of units, and so the biggest hindrance for Fire Slayers, even with being able to bring in KO, because like you can very easily pull in like 2 gun haulers.
Sure.
Or you can pull in like a gun hauler and 20, or a gun hauler and 6 riggers, right?
Yep.
So like those are very real possibilities, and regardless of those realities, there's still, like I think Fire Slayers are still really hurting. Like in the new, I'll say it this way, in the new scenario pack.
Yep. No, here's my ultimate answer. I don't think it matters much because honestly, there's not that many people playing Fire Slayers. That
is a true statement.
And I don't mean that to be rude. Like if you're playing your Fire Slayers and you love them, cool, more power to you. Like that's great. I'm glad you found an army that you really like. My point is that like it would be very easy for you to be in a 5-game tournament, even going toward top tables, and never see them. Right? They just don't have the meta presence to actually be one of those armies that I think you really need to account for at the moment, right? That's just the raw truth. You look at their played percentage, you look at how they've done on our surveys, you look at their AoS reminders data, like by any measure, they just aren't a commonly played army.
They're just not present.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool. All right. So Tom, what is your pick? We're downvoting the Fire Slayers as a pick. What have you got as your second go round here?
Of like that are going to be strong in the meta or
sure.
Meta?
And again, if you don't have to go for a whole army, we can just talk about like the elements of something that you think might have potential, right?
I'm going to say it, and a lot lot of are going to. I'm going to get the roars of disbelief.
Sounds good.
I think that Beasts of Chaos are really strongly positioned in this meta.
Wow. Why would you say something so controversial and yet so true? Okay, so
I mean, right?
I think Beasts are a really interesting army. I do agree. I think people are sleeping on them. I think the trick is they take a lot of bodies to make it run right, and they take a really good player to run them.
You're running 200 bodies, men's.
Yeah.
And because the key is that like they have 2 very interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
They have lots of cheap bodies, like all the cheap bodies.
Sure.
Well, actually 3 things. All the cheap bodies in a low drop battalion. Right?
Yeah, sure.
Because they can functionally 1-drop.
They have lots of different functional one drops or near 1-drops, yes.
Or near 1-drops. So bodies, battalion, low drops, and they can, because they have bodies, like, I'm going to split this into a third point, that like they can split up. Like they have sacrificial wounds, right?
Sure. Yeah.
So they can just throw wounds away onto objectives, and their zoning is unparalleled.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so the reality is that like when you look at the things that they're going to be fighting that have like high mobility teleport, you can't get around that. Like there's no teleporting if there's nowhere to land that's not within 9 inches of something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just to clarify, hold on, I want to answer Oliver real quick. We're not saying they're top meta. We're saying they have good competitive gas against what is in the top meta. That's what we're defining right now. Yeah.
Yeah, we're busting the meta. So we're not saying that they are like a top tier army. What I'm saying is that I would love to take one of these armies into a matchup against the A class armies.
Right.
The things that I'm expecting to see in day 2.
Yep, sure.
Because again, piloted well, they have the right tools and the right mix to actually meta bust what's at the top.
Yeah, and I mean I think people like Joel McGrath or whatever down in Australia have been proving that for a while. Like, doing a lot of work with the Beast Army, right?
So to clarify, I think that they would be strong against Tzeentch. I think that they would be strong against Seraphon. I think they would be strong against Lumineth, and I think they'll be strong against KO.
Interesting. Yeah, the only one out of that matchup that I'm not sure about is Seraphon.
Just because they could absorb the damage.
Yeah, the question is with Seraphon, do they get tied up in all of Seraphon's bodies? That's the problem. Like Zinch tends to have a lower model count, so you can like
Right.
you're right. I could see that.
You just overwhelm.
I could see you
Yeah.
having sacrificial bodies and just overwhelming. I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see them against KO because they can zone out so much of the board. They can really restrict the KO's mobility.
Yeah.
I think it
And,
depends on what the Zinch army is.
and like I could see like 4 tenors of like all the bodies, and then like 4 to 6 tenors of Vestigor, right?
Yeah, sure. And I mean, that
So
just costs nothing. Yes. It's
that
amazing how
costs
much you
nothing,
can get there.
right? And then what ends up happening is they end up being these missiles that like you just need to clear a little gap, and then those things will blow up whatever they hit.
Yeah, sure. Sure. Yep. Oliver is definitely against you, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. I like the statement. I agree. I think beasts need a little more, but I think their
Yeah,
raw capability of bodies makes them a really interesting choice. I really do. Yeah. I
right.
don't
And
hate
and
that
they're
pick.
not, and they have summoning, so like they can actually bring things into the areas that you need to take objectives for.
Mm-hmm.
So they have this like weird summoning that a lot of people forget about. So I don't know. I think that there's potential there, is what I would say.
Yeah. I like it.
And yeah, yeah,
I like it. Okay.
Yeah, they're probably not taking that down an event, but if they run into, say, somebody running KO that has the potential to be a 5-0, they run into this beast player round 2 that knows what they're doing, it can ruin their day.
Yeah, I agree.
Well,
You'll spoil a lot of you have the potential to spoil a lot of those other armies who have otherwise strong matchups.
well, and as somebody said, like a beast army took down Zinch in February at the height of Change Host before it got nerfed.
Yeah,
Points
sure.
got adjusted.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and
I
they took
understand.
the event in last February. So like, I think it has real potential.
I agree. All right. So since I picked Skaven last time, there's only one logical pick for me this time, and that's that's the dark mirror reflection of Skaven, which is cities, or as I like to call them, worse Skaven. Less
Yeah.
interesting Skaven, surface Skaven, however you want to think about them. Yeah, cities of Sigmar. I mean, the cities I think will continue to be an interesting army. They have lots of different ways they can play. They can play in the heavy magic build. They do have some amount of ranged power projection. They have a versatilely large number of units. Unlike their Skaven brethren, by the way, they do have anvils, like serious anvils, by the by. Especially in something like Phoenix Guard, when you're talking about giant blocks of 4-up dudes that are immune to battle shock. That is a really tough nut to crack, and it can sit there and take an unbelievable amount of punishment, even under direct mortal wound fire. Right? It can still be very, very potent. You look at the versatility of what you can get out of the different armies, where Tempest Eye can put you onto a shooting footing, where you're really tough and really resistant to alphas. You look at something like what you can do with Hammerhall if you can push into their zone with something like Prime Time and have him double piling in, who is now, by the way, a lot cheaper. Like Prime Time got so much better in something like Hammerhall, right? You look at something like Living City, where you can have so much of your army off and then ambushing and coming in and shooting and charging. Okay, so there's just a lot of different capabilities in cities, whether it be in every phase. And I think that for the most part, they can be quite resistant, or they can play the power projection game. They can be their own little prickly porcupine, right? And they can either match the ranged power projection and sort of, take down their key pieces they're using to juice themselves up, right? Or they can do things like run big giant blocks of battle shock resistant or battle shock immune infantry that's just going to be able to weather the storm and get over there and actually get onto the objectives, hold the objectives, and push into the enemy. Right? Yeah. I think it's a very, very versatile book out of what it can do. Again, though, just like Skaven, there are bad scrolls. Sure, of course, that's fine. But that's okay. Like in any book with 50 scrolls or whatever nonsense, you compare like Ironjaws, who have 7 war scrolls or something, to cities having basically 50. It's like, yeah, of course there's going to be some bad scrolls in there. I mean, what are we even talking about, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what else haven't I talked about with cities? 'Cause there's more stuff there. What have I not mentioned anything?
I think Hallowheart is really interesting for a couple of reasons. Um, one of like the little footnote abilities that you get in that army is an army-wide 5-up against spells.
Sure.
And that stops a lot of Tzeentch, that stops a lot of Seraphon.
Sure.
So that's really strong, and it also has I believe it's a command trait that gives you an 18-inch battle shock immune bubble.
They do have good command traits actually spread kind of throughout the cities. It's really interesting. Like their command traits and a lot of the city's artifacts are really interesting, even if it's a small list. Their battalions are total garbage, but that's all right. Other than Tempest Eye.
I like the Hammer Holly and Lancers too, but that's just me.
Sure, I would call that a personal taste, not a. I don't think taking small numbers of elite and not very tough cavalry is going to be your winner in this meta.
No, it's not, but it's really, really funny to alpha strike a Star Drake and blow it off the board on the top of turn 1.
Sure. Those little demis can move fast. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I had a game against somebody using that battalion and running like all demis. When I was running my Skaven. No, that's a lie. I was using my Slaves to Darkness. It didn't end well for them because Marauders cheat. That's the long story short there.
Yeah.
So, but it was a good game. I think I agree. Like, there's so much versatility in there. This is also one of those things that, like, I could see them doing a White Dwarf article around that would completely reinvigorate the book. If we got, like, a Jaws of Mork style article with just some good battalions, holy moly, this book would pop off. Right? Like, that's the only missing real piece right now. So if we got some actual functional battalions that had units that you actually wanted to play and any ability that was even halfway decent, I'm just saying, it'd be pretty good.
Yeah. And like Skaven, they're also a contender in the power projection game.
Yeah. Yep, 100%. Yeah, whether it be Hallowheart ramping up mega bonuses to cast, they have plenty of good ranged damage dealing options. They have the ability to not even ally, but to bring in KO in one of the cities, right? So, no doubt. Steam tanks are still not cheap enough to be valuable, but we'll get there eventually. 140 point Steam tanks. Let's do it. We can get there.
Yeah, I feel like a 140 is reasonable for a Steam tank.
Either that or just give it a 2-up save and like a Stonehorn 5-up against Mortal Wounds because it's all made of steel, and then keep it where it is. And that's fine. Or let the cannon fire twice. Or
as it was in 8th edition, it would be great.
Sure. Yeah, or just let the cannon fire twice, maybe. That'd be cool. Just something. Yeah. Give it something. All right, Tom, anything about cities we didn't cover? We didn't talk about Phoenixes. The Phoenixes are also worth mentioning. The actual Phoenix themselves. Both are still really good. Not just the Phoenix Guard, but like both of the Phoenixes actually are really, I think, good for their points right now. So they should be mentioned as well. The Phoenicium is garbage, but the Phoenixes themselves are good and fit perfectly fine in any of the other forces.
Agreed.
Yeah. I definitely stand. I definitely back. I definitely like the Phoenix. I think they're sweet and they're cool models. And Tom, you have like 3 painted Phoenixes. You're right on your way to a cities army, my friend. That's what you need to be doing right now. Ready. You need to do what I did and find the cities army conversion idea that works for you. You've already got the Phoenixes. Yeah. There you go. You just need to take some of those old elves you love so much and figure out a concept. Like, you're a high elf city. It's not the Phoenicium, because we understand that's actually booty. But like one of the other cities is you can find a good one. They could be a Hollowheart high elf thing.
Yeah, I know.
Cities maintains the old high elf aesthetic.
I know.
Just saying.
I know.
They could be living city actually. That'd be pretty cool. You could do some. All right, this isn't a cities review show.
But then I have to paint up an entirely new army, or I can just play my KO.
No, I understand that. I was actually thinking of how cool it would be to have like an all Fire Phoenix themed,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
one of
that's
those
fine.
armies. I was just suddenly thinking through it. I need to figure out which one I like.
Yeah, and you
Oh,
could do the sisters of old sisters of Avalorn, sisters of the Watch with the flaming bows and stuff like that.
yeah, yeah.
Like, oh yeah, there's like all the pieces are there. Like
Hmm.
aesthetically, all the pieces are there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's
That's what
no
I'm saying.
question about that. Yep,
Absolutely.
yep.
They could just be
Yeah,
your,
I was
those
actually
girls would
gonna
be your
do
Shadow Warriors, by the way, Oppi. So
sure. Like what I was going to do was I was going to do something similar, but I was going to do it um, with like I was also bringing in like doing the death theme and bringing in flaming skulls. So all my
yeah,
heavily
sure.
armored guys were converted skeletons with the flaming skulls.
Yeah,
So it was going to be the same thing, but like green fire.
sure.
So
I like it. All right.
yep.
Okay, so let's as we're moving down here toward the close, let's talk about a couple other armies and just kind of see what you both think. Let's do a little lightning round type of discussion. Here we go. How about Beast Claw? Okay. How about how about the BCR side of ogres? What are we feeling about that right now?
I
Is
feel
the
like
is the is the eight or
way
nine
too many
Thunder
of their
Tusk list
points and
real?
not enough wounds.
Okay. Okay. I don't remember how
Like
many
their
it is.
wound count is not high enough.
Okay. Tom, you got a take on BCR?
Yeah, I mean, I think they suffer from the world we live in with all of um, the world we're in. Let me say it that way. With all of uh, what is it?
Mortal wound projection? Is that what you're looking for? What are you hitting on?
Words are hard. I'm thinking. Hold on.
Okay.
Don't hurt yourself.
The world we're in with the multiple objectives.
Oh, okay. Got it. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know.
like that's
It's
a very
interesting.
real challenge.
I suppose. I mean, even the smallest version of that army probably still has, 4 or 5 monster trucks on the board. As we all know, hashtag never less than 5. But the fact that you can mix in those cheaper Thunder Tusks now and actually get like some shooting mixed in and some blood vultures and stuff like that, it's kind of interesting how they work. Sometimes you can do a little bit of like picking people off.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the best, but it's not terrible. I'm not sure. Like, I honestly think Beast Claw is still a contender. I don't know that it's the like what I would call an anti-meta pick. I think that would be stretching it too far. But I think it still plays. That would
Sure.
be my argument. I think what it's doing is like consider how much in that army is both a monster and battle line, right? And or a
Mm-hmm.
leader. And so how many bonus points in the new scenarios they're qualifying for,
Sure.
right? Like
Mm-hmm.
one thing, they get almost all the bonus points almost every time, right?
Sure. Yep.
Because they're ticking all the buckets in any scenario. What do you need?
Yep.
Leaders? We've got them. Monsters? We've got those too. They're the same guy. Battle line? Basically the same guy again. You know what I mean? Like I understand
Right.
they're actually 2 different people in the army, but you get what I'm saying.
Yep.
Um, so I think they're and like don't underestimate those couple extra points. I've played
Yep.
all the new scenarios now that have those extra points, and what I'll say is, wow, do those make a difference?
They do. They
It
do.
was shocking how impactful those just like gain a bonus point in this scenario because suddenly somebody jumps like 2 points ahead, and you're like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to make up those 2 points, right? Like
Yep.
it just I'm not like I'm going to have to dominate them off of an objective I wasn't planning to previously dominate them off of,
Right.
right? So I think that is an advantage for them. So yeah, I could see it if they were maybe up at like 5 or 6 because they've only got 5 or 6 pieces and they kind of want those to be fighting people, some number of them. But I don't know that it's a huge downside. And I think,
Sure.
as always, their ability to be 10 models is potent, right? Like, because generally
Sure.
after they hit a unit, it doesn't have 10 models left. Like, that's the general outcome
Right.
of their
Right.
impact. So yeah, okay. How about anything in? I'll say I'm not sure about the world and the future for things like Iron Jaws or Big Wah or those kinds of things. I think that's an uphill struggle.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think they're as bad off as Khorne or some other armies. But the loss of like the ethereal amulet on the mega boss, or the mortal wound protection amulet, whichever one you happen to like. The scales, that is to say. I think that things like your war chanters become really susceptible to being killed. And certainly anybody of any intelligence is going to snipe your war chanters right out of your army. You don't have magic to speak of, right? Like that's not a thing, so you just have to weather it. I don't know that they're bad, but they're certainly not good, would be my take.
Yeah.
Does that feel fair?
Yeah, I think it feels fair.
Yeah.
What I would bring up, though, you mentioned Khorne.
Yeah, sure.
And Khorne, I think, is interesting because it has such strong anti-magic.
True. Like the Hexgorger skulls are super great. I agree.
Yeah, and they also are really interesting. Like their judgments are really interesting tools for blocking up the board. So they have some weird potential. If you have the right Khorne build, I think they are, like anything, the right build, the right person piloting it, I think they've got some ability to hang. And if they're running up against like Croak, then they're gonna shut down a lot of that magic.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I don't disagree with their strong anti-magic. Between sort of their auto-dispel, they can take secondary auto-dispels. Lots of people have sort of, if you have the right units, you can have little collar dogs that are letting them dispel, even stuff like that, right? With potential bonuses or unbinds. Sorry, I shouldn't be saying dispel, I should be saying unbind. And the Hexgorger skulls are obviously potent. But the Hexgorger skulls and those kinds of prayers are also, famously unreliable, right? Like, you roll the die, if you're near the thing, if you're near the shrine, okay, great, then you can do what you can do. But, like, if they come out, they come out. If they go away, they go away, right? Like, you don't have much control over it. It kind of is what it is there with those prayers. And so they're very random and hard to predict. I will also say that shooting really does a number on this army. Because your slaughter priests you're relying on to get those prayers out there, those are very weak wound dudes on a 5-up save. Any amount of shooting, they're gone. Your Bloodstoker, Fatty Boombalatti with his little pokey stick, he's gone. Right? Maybe the Bloodsecrator can live through a little bit of fire because he is on a 3-up and can have extra protections if you want to soup him up with your magic items, which I don't think is a bad choice since he's such an integral piece. So he's a little bit tougher, but he can still go down. Your Bloodthirsters are like, okay. I mean, what are we even talking about?
Good night, Bloodthirsters.
I mean, that kind of, it's the same thing with my Keepers of Secrets, by the way. We're in the same boat. Like, Keepers and Bloodthirsters are in the same boat. Where they're just, like, prone to evaporation in this new meta, right?
Right. Yeah. They get to move once.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Now, sometimes that can still be effective, but I wouldn't rely on keeping that kind of a power piece around for any length of time. So yeah, I'm definitely not repping Khorne. I think I agree with you on the anti-magic thing. The problem is I think too much of what you're going to come up against dodges it. Like you're gonna have Techless auto setting his number and not caring about your skulls, right? Like whatever. Yeah. That fires on an 8. It doesn't matter. I cast on 12s. Boom, 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 and my number can't be modified.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Like that's what we're doing here, right? So yeah, I think that's probably my list. I mean, is there anybody else you can think of that you think has some like strong potential right now to actually counter meta play? there's probably there's a big chunk of people that are like, yeah, they'll still be okay and interesting, and they can probably still do some stuff. Like FEC will probably always be interesting and fine. Yes, they probably will get knocked down a peg. Doc are going to get knocked down a big peg, but depending on that book, could be in a fine place, right? So there's all sorts of like, kind of middle people. I don't know that there's anybody else I would pick as like a strong meta play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. One thing I will give a shout out to that is not an army, but an endless spell, the Malevolent Maelstrom. It's 10 points,
and it just gives you extra
anti-magic.
Yeah,
like that. That's just providing you with a little piece to just stick in there. And how often are you at like 1980?
Well, not only that, like I like it. Like I've used it. I painted up for my Nighthaunt army, and every time I've used it, I've enjoyed it as a tool. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's just kind of extra chances to get rid of magic, right?
Right, and it like counts in it, and it counts for the units that matter. Does that make sense? And so, like, it counts for the like, because, or how do I want to say this? It is like it's not a normal unbind. It's its own.
Yeah.
And because it's its own thing, like it really, like it's functioning differently.
No, I'm with that. Can I give one other small shout out there? The end of the spell pick's a good one, and that is like there's a couple of others that I think are still interesting. Soul Snare, maybe the Wall, like Palisades. That is to say, okay. But I think you're right that like these things, but there's actually something out of that list in War Scroll Builder that's always my first choice before the endless spells. And that's just the extra command point. I know that sounds absolutely stupid, but I have not built an army without one in I don't know how long. Like, my armies are just 1,950 points. Because with a lot more power projection on the board, you have to be aware of, like, your ability to lose stuff on the first turn. When you might get out-dropped. And you don't want to be suffering Battle Shock on the first turn if you can avoid it, right? Especially with, like, a unit you care to save. So I know that sounds super silly and rote and basic, but I mean, it's literally the first thing I add to my list every time I build a list. I just go down and I'm like, extra command point. There we go. That's in the list. And let's build from 1950. Here we go. Okay. Every time. Even if I'm taking a battalion, by the way. Right? Even so. I just feel like it is so critical and not a game goes by that I don't value it. So that would be my hot take. There you go. Extra command point. All armies should be started at 1950. Just build in your extra command point and think in those terms. That's my answer. So there you go. All right, guys. Anything else we want to say about the current meta? It'll be interesting when we get back to like large scale tournaments here, hopefully in 2021. But
do we want to do some like a lightning round of armies? Just some brief like summaries. Like, so somebody had asked about a Nighthaunt summary. They probably missed what we talked about before. I think Nighthaunt is a non-starter because of how, like, they're heroes, right?
Oh, sure. The losers. Yeah, we can talk the losers real quick before I call it a day. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Nighthaunt are on the back foot because their heroes tend to get sniped out and they don't have a tremendous amount of mortal wound protection.
I say the same thing about Gits. Gits are so reliant on their heroes, and they, they're not, like, they're just dead in this meta.
Slanesh is a big loser. It's like you have.
Right, Slanesh is a big loser.
You have no durability at all. You can't build depravity fast enough to like actually keep yourself in the game, and you've been quad nerfed. So, you know, there you go. Oh, there you go. Oliver said, accept OCR for the CP thing. Yeah, fair enough. Okay, accept OCR. Don't throw 50 points in the trash. Who else haven't we touched on? Trying to think of any other like the other armies we haven't mentioned yet. There's like a lot of them. It's hard to remember every single army. So you know there's a ton of armies. We touched on
Chaos Dwarves.
We're not touching on them. That's not a real army. Doesn't count. Is my answer. We mentioned Daughters briefly. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through the list here to make sure there's nothing we forgot. Who haven't we touched on? Oh, we mentioned FEC. Yeah, I think FEC are always still going to be in the mix, right? Because they just have like crazy power pieces that move crazy fast, and they can also run a bunch of bodies. If you want to do the body play, you can do that. So, so that's also doable, right? Which I actually think is good. We talked Fire Slayers. You just mentioned Gits. I do agree with you on them Gits. Unfortunately, we talked Ideneth. We talked all them Iron Jaws.
How do you think that
I really
the
feel
Giants
like we've
are
covered
gonna,
most of this.
How do you think the Giants are going to fare in like scenarios with 8 objectives?
I don't know, man. I have no idea. I don't know. I have no answer for you because I haven't seen the book. I don't know what they're gonna do. I like it because it's entirely possible you have an army of 6 models, 9 models, or 12 models.
Yep.
Those will be your sort of common numbers, right? Given how the points work out.
Yep.
And I guess we didn't mention Sylvaneth. Okay, great.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, Sylvaneth exists.
They certainly do. And then and OCR. I mean, I think OCR's in an interesting place. I don't know how they're going to react to PE being nerfed. They still have a lot of powerful tools. They're still a very tough army. They can still get good armor in Mortis Praetorians. They can still hit real hard. So there you go. We did cover Nurgle earlier and said we think they're actually one of the good counterplay winners. So there you go. Yeah, that's everything. That's all of them. We did them all.
Yep.
All the armies.
I feel like we've... Oh, Legions and Nagash.
All the armies. We did all the armies. No,
yeah,
I mean...
That's not a real army.
No, my answer with Legions would be like... They weren't that competitive before, and nothing that's happening here is making them any better. Because as bad as Nagash is in OBR, theoretically, he's certainly worse in Legions. Right?
Yep.
So like if you're gonna run Big Papa Nagash, you put him into OBR. Where yes, of course, he's not synergistic with Petrifex Elite, but okay, whatever. That's fine. He can still be fine. Yeah.
He still does lots of good things, even though
He's
he
still
doesn't get +1 to save.
Yeah, he's still an arcane bolt machine gun, which is not to be underrated, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
And a mega caster and someone who's going to dominate the magic phase, like in a huge way, right? And just be a general bully on the board in a lot of interesting ways. So, yeah. But I think Legions itself, you know, it needs the love. Hopefully they'll get one of the treatments with a book, and with a Broken Realms book, and we'll see what happens. So, yeah, all right, good stuff. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
Nope, I think it's it.
All right.
I think the Nurgle meta is real.
There you go. Good note to end on. I would like to say you're wrong because I don't want to see any Nurgle ever, but I suspect you're probably right. So, gentlemen, I will say thank you very much. Paul, great to have you back on the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me, as always.
Absolutely. For all of you out there who are watching, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Don't forget, hit the like button. It's as easy as moving your mouse over just like that far, like right now. Like reach out, touch your mouse. If you're watching on like a tablet, you can literally just touch it with your finger. It's so easy. So easy. Hit that like button, and that helps other people find the show, which we really appreciate. Thank you all so much for watching. As always, we'll see you next Wednesday.